Okay, so as you guys can tell by the title, today I am going to be helping you guys up your Instagram game. So what we're going to be doing is we have a spot up the hill there, just in the woods. I'll show you guys in a sec, but that is going to be our location for today. We're just driving. We're up north at our grandparents', but all these tips that I'm going to give you here in a second can be used for day-to-day things. You don't have to be in a remote place. These tips can really tie in with photography in the city or wherever you might be. These tips can be used really anywhere, but today, because we are so remote, I thought this would work really great. Okay, so the first thing is you need to have images that inspire you. I know that you're not going to be copying these people, but you need to have inspiration because you need a clear direction. And even for creative people, it still is necessary, because to build off of what other people have done, you don't look the same, you might not have the same clothing, and that's totally fine. You might not even have the same environment, you might have the same environment, but that doesn't really matter in the long run. What you need to really focus on is taking away things like the color grade, the posing, the style, what style you want to convey, whether that's going to be a low, medium, high shot. They all convey different moods, so those are things that you really need to focus on. And so really pick apart images that you really like, and then take one thing from each individual photo and then apply that to your photo. Okay, so the photo that I have in mind today is by Tony Moffat. He is definitely one of my hugest. He is definitely my biggest inspiration because I love the way that he poses. I love his style, from the way that he dresses. I know a lot of it is sponsored clothing, but from the way that he dresses, how he poses, his color grade, everything is really unique. And I feel like he's conveying a story in every single photo that he takes. And that's really important to me because as a photographer and videographer, my biggest goal is to convey a story to whoever I'm showing this project to. And it goes into personal things as well, because once you're able to convey a story in personal things, you'll be able to convey that in paid gigs. So those are some really big things, but we're just working on Instagram today, so we can just think about story for ourselves and conveying a story to our audience on Instagram. So the second thing that we're going to be focusing on today is posing. Posing, I've said it a couple times throughout the start of this video, but posing is actually really big because you need to focus on what kind of image you want to convey, because like people have said, if you watch behind the scenes for movies, or if you hear what a film director talks about for different moods of scenes and shots, low shots convey more of a dominant look because you look bigger. The medium is just a friendly look, and then from the top you make the character look kind of not insignificant, but just more timid, I guess. So those are things that you really need to focus on when you're doing photos. So those are things that we are going to be thinking about as we do these shots. And so when we're out there, I am going to kind of run you guys through that. For each individual shot, we are going to start at the low position, then we're going to go to the medium, and we're just going to try a few things. Try portrait mode, and then try just holding the camera normal, and we'll see what we can get. We're working with the 80D today, the Canon 80D, so you don't have to have the best camera possible. I do have the option of my 1DX Mark II, but just for your sake, to show you guys that you don't need a big budget camera, you can shoot this. I have a Canon T4i, and that's like my old camera, but that would still work on this. As long as you're shooting raw, that's all that matters. So then you can manipulate it in post, and we'll see what we can do with this photo. Okay, so our first one, we are gonna try lower angles, and I think what we're gonna do is we're going to try with this log in the back. I think it's pretty cool. And as well, there's a couple big trees here, so we're gonna see what we can do. And just down there, there's kind of like a strip between the trees, so that might look kind of cool. I can always edit out the hydro lines in Photoshop, so let's see what we can do. Okay, so if somebody is taking a shot of you from a lower angle, you definitely don't want to be looking down too much because you're gonna get the rolls right underneath the chin. Like it or not, it just happens, and it doesn't define your jawline as much. So make sure to keep that jaw up a little bit more, eyes down towards the camera. You definitely don't want to be hunched down with your chin right at the camera or at the ground. That's something that you really need to focus on when you are going to be shooting from a lower angle. Make sure to move to the side as though you're walking. I fiddled with my jacket sometimes, I would fiddle with my scarf. All those things are things to add depth and movement into the image to make the image look really interesting, and yeah, it looks pretty cool. Okay, so we are going to be filming chest level. Make sure to go a little bit below that because when you're cropping in, Instagram goes by an 8x10, so you really have to be thinking about that. You want enough room above the head and enough room below the chest, unless you're taking with an iPhone. That's totally cool, but since we're taking with a camera, we have to keep that in mind for cropping purposes. But for right now, we're just going to be doing below the chest. And right now, I love the texture of this tree behind me, so we're going to work with that and see what we can get. Okay, so when you are shooting from the chest below, you definitely want to make sure that you are changing up your facial expressions. I know a lot of people are definitely going to be smiling for their Instagram posts, and that's totally cool. You can definitely do that, but make sure that you're moving up your side-to-side looks. You can always move your chin off to one side and give the camera a glare out the side of your eye to kind of give it that more interesting feel. You can always look off, give a smile as though you're looking at somebody, give like a fake laugh, but make sure that you definitely are switching up your poses, because the more you do it, the more natural things come out, and you never know what you're gonna like. You can go a few smiling, you can go a few not, and just kind of pick out what you like the most out of that. Okay, so now we are gonna change height. We're gonna change the dynamic to where I go a little bit lower, just change the levels of everything. So possibly sitting, crouching, kneeling, and just trying a few different things out, because you never know what that could turn out. So I'm gonna switch things up. We're gonna start shooting from this log with these trees in the background, and I really love that dead tree that's fallen down in the background there. I think it's super cool, and I think we'll be able to get some really cool shots with that. All right. You guys can tell from all the different angles that we worked with on this, a lot of it is more the foreground. I know a lot of people get hung up that they're not at the most beautiful place and they don't have the coolest background, but a lot of it is what you as a model or the person are able to do. Okay, so I'm back. My camera died, and yeah, it was a big bummer. But we're back. We're doing some post-production, and we are going to be looking at all the images from the high, medium, low, and I chose 2 shots per, and I think we can really get across the concept of different angles, create different emotions, and then we're going to go through the color grading, why I chose what I did, and let's just get into it. Okay, so the first shot that we're looking at is this one where I'm looking down off to the side. As you can see, my eyes aren't fully closed, they're just a little bit open, and it appears that way just because my eye line is probably at about medium height. You don't want to be looking fully down, because if you do, your eyes are going to look closed. But I like this image because with this, as I said before, my jawline isn't too far down, so it's at least showing that I do have a jawline, and it's creating nice shadows there, but I'm not losing my jawline into my scarf. And I really like this image because it's simple posing. My arm is just pretty natural, and I'm just kind of holding onto the scarf and just doing something with my hands so it's not awkward. And then I love the background in this, the tree cutting across the frame in the background, and the highlights in the top right corner. I think it's super cool, and I'm pretty happy with how this photo turned out. And then next, we're looking into the second photo here. It's another one from the low angle, and I really like this one as well because I'm looking just a little bit off, but it's pretty close to right at the camera, but my eye line is nice where I'm not losing my eyes. I'm looking right at the camera, and my hands are doing more. I think it just adds more depth to the picture because I'm doing more in the image. You don't always have to do more, sometimes less is more, but for this image I think it just creates more dynamic and more depth. And as I said before, chin line's not too low, so it's not being buried in the scarf. You can see the jawline and the chin in this image, and I'm really happy with this. Next set of images is with the tree. I cannot stress enough how much texture comes into play. Texture can be so useful for you in your shots, and I love the texture of this tree. Like, my mind was blown. I wanted to take a photo there from the first time that we got there. I was so pumped when I saw that tree, but I love how the texture in this tree really just adds depth to the picture. And even though all I'm doing is just pulling on my collar, I'm really evoking the emotion with my eyes and with the way that I'm looking with my chin. Facial expressions are really everything, because even though I'm doing just a little bit with my hand and looking off to the side, it creates that emotion of distance, of kind of being annoyed with you, and it just adds more energy into the picture. And I know it's kind of like a fashion look and maybe not everybody wants to use it, but I think it's kind of cool and it adds a different depth and emotion if you want to display that. But then into the second image, they're basically the same image because I'm pulling on my collar the exact same way, but the thing that I've changed is my facial expression in the way that I'm looking at the camera. So that can really affect the way that you display a mood to the camera and to your audience. This one is not as intense. It seems a little bit more friendly, and that's something that you need to keep in mind when you're doing your shoots. And then third, we're looking at the higher shots. No, these are not my favorite shots, and no, they're not my best images, and that's totally fine. I just want to show you guys how this can really create an emotion and a different depth into your picture. I know that I'm going to be using this kind of style for a shoot coming up that I'm going to be doing, and I'm super excited for that because I want to test this, and I know the look that it can create from having inspiration from another artist, but I love how it just makes you feel sad or feel for the character. And I've seen that in movies, and they use that to create that emotion and that depth to a film or to a picture to really just cause you to engage with that character because you feel for them. And in this second image, what you can see is I'm looking out and it's from a higher angle, and it looks like I'm waiting for somebody. It looks like I'm kind of sad, and it just really involves you in the image more than what another angle might. And so that's something that I think you could really use to your benefit. So now we are going to be talking and breaking down the color grade. So what I want to achieve with this color is to make the skin tones and the highlights more of a creamy color, and then the shadows more of a bluey pink. And with those two colors, I think they really work off each other really nicely. As you can see from Tony Moffat's page, it really works nicely for him, and I think the color scheme really interacts well with each other. So I wanted to make the skin tones really subtle, and what I did is I added an extra flare into the top right highlights of the image because I blew out the highlights. I added in a little bit more orange into the image, and I think that's super cool because I've seen it in Aaron Brimhall's work, and it just adds that little bit of flair and little bit of pop. And then I added another gradient to the bottom side of the image to make it fall off as though it's fading out to dark. So I go light into dark, and it was just kind of a cool flare I've never tried before, but I wanted to kind of give it a try, and I think it worked out really nicely. And I don't think I'll be using it for all my images, but I think for these couple, it was pretty cool. So that is all for me. Stay safe out there, and if you guys would like to follow me, my page is jake.wagler on Instagram, and if you guys would like to subscribe, that would be awesome. I would really appreciate that, and I hope to see you guys very soon. All right, see ya.